Welcome to The Dead Life. Here's world-renowned medium, Allison DuBois.
Welcome to The Dead Life. For those of you new to the show, I'm Allison DuBois. I inspired the hit television show Medium. I'm a New York Times bestselling author. I've penned 6 books on the afterlife for those of you who are questioning life after death. Today, I have my youngest daughter, Sophia DuBois, in studio for my Love Me, Love Me Not segment to help answer call-in questions for my listeners. Sophia brings an intuitive perspective from a Gen Z point of view, and I bring an intuitive perspective from Generation X. Either way, we're here to help my listeners who are struggling with deep emotional confusion around life and death. To book a reading with me, email us at booking@allisondubois.com. If you have a life question for me and Sophia for my Love Me, Love Me Not segment, leave your question at 802-332-3811. If you want to watch past and present episodes of The Dead Life, you can follow me on YouTube. Please like and subscribe. Don't forget to pick up a bottle of my Divination 22 Money Potion Vodka or Love Potion at One Handsome Bastard in Old Town Scottsdale or Handlebar J's to set your intentions for 2025. Well, Sophia, thank you for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
Always happy to have you here. And we have a lot of backed up call-in questions. So I've assembled a few of them. We've still got 30 more that I need to go through, and hopefully people will call in with some more questions regarding their own abilities in the afterlife or experiences they've had with the other side. But I do love these segments because it's like catching fastballs, you know, everything's different. It's such a smorgasbord of interesting.
Yeah,
all the ghosties out there.
Well, it's good because I feel like a lot of people have the same questions that others do, but then they bring their own personal touch to it with their own stories, which I like. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the human perspective on it, the individual stories, because even though there's a lot of questions that people will have similar questions about, there are some that come out of left field where I actually really have to think deeply about what they're asking. So I like those because they challenge me.
Good.
So why don't we go ahead and take the first call in?
Okay.
Hi, Allison. My question is in regards to witch spells. My daughter was living in her home with her husband and 2 children in a very alcoholic, abusive alcoholic situation, and she was scared to live in her own home. And I had gone to a reader who said she was going to cast a justice spell so that if he was ever, he had been arrested for beating her one night, and, she said that this spell would offer her protection. Well, about 3 weeks after that, this person did something that is landing him in prison for a long time. And I feel a little responsible for that because I had put it out to the universe. This lady said that she was going to offer protection, and, obviously now my daughter's family is split up. Yes, she is safe, but is it, in the best interest of the children for their father to be locked away for so long? I was just wondering if you feel like a witch spell would have anything to do with that, or is that just karma and God's will? So if you have any insight on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
So let's peel back the layers on this. Can a protection spell help? Absolutely. I've seen them work. A justice spell. Margaret Jameson is particularly good at some of these maneuvers that you can use, these that can help bring about it's really just a way to focus the energy you're already having into an intention. is what that is.
Yeah.
So people talk about karma, they talk about spells. Of course, a spell could serve as a tool of karma. I was a little confused by how she was phrasing this question because I did work in law enforcement and I am a right or wrong kind of person. I see things in black and white, very few shades of gray. So if her husband or son-in-law was beating her daughter and it worried her enough to cast a protection spell, and he went to prison for it, then exactly what needed to happen happened. And let me say this from having grown up in a house that had that kind of turmoil to it. It affects the children.
Oh, yeah.
When they're seeing their mother beat and they can feel her fear. And eventually he's going to focus his attention on the children. And it's not okay, first of all, if somebody laid a hand on one of you girls, that would be a war for me. And I think most mothers out there and fathers can relate to that. I'm not worried about the guy that went to prison. I hope it sucks. I hope it's terrible. And I hope he gets the therapy he so justly needs. But her daughter, even though it split up the family, it rooted out the danger in the household.
So that's kind of what confuses me. Because, okay, it's not your fault for casting this spell. It was his own actions that led him to prison. It was not your actions. You didn't make him commit a crime.
Right.
And it's not his first crime he's ever committed. Okay.
Right.
This is like deep rooted in him.
And these are the ones that he got caught for.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, which really confuses me is you're right. I'm putting myself in your shoes as my mom. I have no sympathy for him at all. Like, I don't know why she would even say like, well, yeah, sure. My daughter's safe now. It's like, isn't that the biggest thing? Like the
paramount
most important thing in this whole situation
for safety
is that your daughter's not getting beaten every night and her kids are safe too. Like, yeah, it broke them up, but guess what? She could hopefully raise them correctly now without any danger in their life. And then she has a chance to have a proper relationship that's safe in the future. So yeah, their dad's not there anymore, but that's for the best.
Yeah. And hopefully in the prison that he's in, he has a pathway to counseling and that he actually wants to take it because they don't always have to take it. It's just offered sometimes in the prisons. He sounds like he's been a troubled person his whole life. Her daughter's probably a fixer and drew in someone that she wanted to help. He was a bad boy or somebody she wanted to believe in because often that personality of a criminal will play the victim. It's everyone else's fault. They did this to me. This is why I'm like this. If you hadn't pushed me so hard and I hadn't been so tired from work, which probably wasn't the case, I wouldn't have hit you.
Yeah.
You know, so again, you have these blame mentalities and it makes me wonder with the call-in, did she go through this at some point in her life where she would sympathize with him? Or is this just, she feels guilty because she thinks somehow the person who was beating her daughter is suffering, which would make me happy if they were suffering. I would find additional ways to help that along if I could. And the children, even yelling, even kids that grow up around the yelling, you guys are affected by that. We're all affected by it because kids are such open vessels of information and energy, and they're just drawing in everything around them, and it hurts their soul deeply. I'm happy that her daughter has this opportunity to find her own strength, perhaps find a career path that she wouldn't have pursued because she was under the thumb of the husband who controls her. But these kids, the older they get, the more of a target they have on their backs for the husband. And so I would see this as a win and a wonderful thing that her daughter can start over and good riddance to bad rubbish on him being pulled out of the house. Those kids could come home and not walk on eggshells.
Yeah, I think the other thing is too, I think she might be feeling guilty because her daughter is probably crying to her every night because she was so attached to this man. Because
Good point.
he was probably a manipulator.
Sure.
So she was so attached she couldn't leave herself. So she's probably crying to her mom every night, like, oh my God, like my kids aren't going to have a father. Like he's like, what are they going to think about our family and their dad? So I think that's probably why she's feeling guilty. I'm sure she's very, very happy her daughter's safe, but I think her daughter is probably calling her a lot.
Well, and he's probably calling his wife.
Yeah.
From prison.
Yeah.
Saying, I love you, baby. I'm so sorry.
For me.
Yeah.
You know?
And I hope she's not blaming it on her mother in any way and saying this is because then she's bringing the danger back in the daughter if she then sides with the perpetrator. And I understand Stockholm syndrome and how people and their captors and people that mistreat them, they learn how to sympathize with them. This is not uncommon, unfortunately. Domestic violence, as we know it, because you were an AKIO and your sorority, that was their charity to help with. I was in it with being the child in that situation. If I'm speaking for the kids, I'd rather be poor and have nothing than have to worry about my dad killing my mom. And so whoever the call-in is, because we didn't get a name, I understand anonymity, very important. To answer you, honestly, I think you did a really big solid for your daughter here in protecting her, in extracting him from the house. This is what was meant to happen, or energetically, it wouldn't have played out this way. It sounds like he commits multiple crimes and he has a tendency to overreact or not be able to control his emotions, and he needs to get help with that. That's what prisons are for. People that can't control themselves, it keeps them confined.
Well, also, you did a protection spell. You didn't do an evil spell. You did I'm protecting my daughter spell. So you didn't force him to do anything. He did it himself. It was already going to happen regardless of the spell. It was a justice spell, though. You got the justice you deserved.
Thank God the daughter and her kids weren't hurt. Absolutely. What if she hadn't cast this spell and he had gotten angry another time or went drinking and came home ticked off? And what if he didn't mean to hurt a child so badly and he accidentally kills it? I mean, I see that as well in homicide. So I think you helped save your daughter and your grandchildren. You should give yourself a pat on the back. The other side gave you a strong assist, and he is where he needs to be. And hopefully he's able to learn something about his behavior other than next time to not get caught. Either way, if a man lays a hand on you, they're gonna do it again. Yeah. And I think a lot of women who've been through it would say that is true. A lot of women see themselves as a sacrifice. If he hits me, he'll leave them alone. And that's just not the way it works. Eventually they turn on the children. Yeah. So thank you for calling in. If anybody has a comment on that, wants to call in and let us know, we're happy to share it in the future. Love to hear your thoughts. So let's go to the next call-in.
Hi, Allison. This is Toby. I work acute care, and I have a question for you. I had a patient a while back who had suffered a fall. She had some PTSD from the experience, and she explained that her symptoms was very much like someone who had left the body. She was able to see her body in the bed. She felt like she was outside of herself, even though she could feel her own body. She could feed herself. She could roll over, all of that stuff. But she just felt like her mind wasn't connected to her body, and it reminded me of near-death experiences. And I tried to communicate with her that I understood what was going on, give her some calming energy, but it made me wonder, what do people who have that experience, how do they reintegrate? So their perspective. Thanks so much. Bye.
So I found this call a little confusing. Yeah. So Is she asking how to near NDEs, near death experiences, people that experience those, how do they reintegrate into life? From what I've learned, been told, and seen, they value life more. They don't take it for granted. This patient sounds like something different.
That's what I was thinking too.
Than an NDE. Okay, they suffered a fall. I've suffered falls, and my mind never left my body like that. So
also, a near-death experience is one experience where then they come back and they're like, "This is what I saw." If you're in a coma and stuff like that too. This sounds like she can do it on command or something.
Another question with the patient: was she on medication?
Yeah.
Was this some sort of, was it a hallucination of some sort? I don't have enough information to fully answer it on the patient that suffered the fall and feels like her mind wasn't connected as though it was an out-of-body experience. Because if you're feeding yourself, that's an operation of the mind.
Yeah.
If you're bathing yourself, it's an operation of the mind. So you couldn't be disconnected from yourself and doing those things, which is what she said she recounted that she was able to do.
Yeah.
It sounds as if she maybe had some sort of a disassociative process going on where she just was mentally checked out while doing those things, and on autopilot, it's still an operation of the mind.
Yeah,
so
I don't know. Yeah, you're right. We don't have enough information.
Right. But with near-death experiences, often they see a loved one on the other side, or an ethereal being that tells them they have to go back. Like, it's a very clear, I was almost dead moment, and I was told to go back, and my grandmother got further and further away from me and then I woke up, in the hospital. So near-death experiences are usually more clear that it was a near-death experience rather than somebody feeling disconnected from their body. It sounds like she's somehow on autopilot, going through the motions of life, and you'd have to look at some other things that happen. Maybe when she suffered the fall, maybe part of her brain swelled. I don't know, which could have caused some sort of confusion for her. So I just thought it was an interesting one. I'm like, is it me, or do I need another set of ears listening to this? And so I know it was hard for Toby to explain exactly what it was because she didn't know what this patient's situation really is. I would say, the patient needs to get, what if her head was hit in this fall? She needs another scan of some sort to make sure there's no swelling. Also, what medications was she on? Did they give her something that mixed with a prior medication that wasn't working for her? I've not heard this before.
Same.
And I've been doing this professionally for 25 years. So I've been on autopilot before in my house, but I was aware that I was doing the things that I was doing. I wasn't outside of my body watching me do it. I was aware that I just sort of was going through the motions and not really caring, where you're just sort of.
Well, that's when it's called dissociation.
Yeah.
Is when you're on autopilot. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
But that's different than what she's explaining. I think you're right. I think they need to do another scan, figure it out, look at her medication.
Yeah.
Because it's not near-death experience.
No.
I get where she was coming from, though.
Right. It was the closest thing she had to compare it to.
Exactly. Yeah.
Toby, do it pronto. The girl needs to be looked at. So, but I'm glad Toby called in because it shows what a caring person she is in healthcare. Yeah. And we need more Tobys out there. Yay. So thank you, Toby. Let's go ahead and take the next caller.
Okay.
Hi, Allison. This is Meg from Minneapolis. I love your podcast. When I first started listening to it, I immediately noticed how things you said in conversations related to things I was thinking or going through. I really enjoy your perspective, and thank you for sharing your gifts with the world. I have a question for you. I have heard stories that people who have had organ transplants will start to crave or feel and think new things, and they find out that the person whose organs they now have had those cravings or life experiences. I am wondering what happens to people's souls that donate organs that are inside a different living body. Thanks.
That's a good question.
That's why I included it.
That's a good one.
And Meg, thank you for all the props. Appreciated. Yes. Organ transplants. Okay. So let me get this thought out before you answer, because it's
No, I want to listen to what you have to say, because I have no idea.
Okay. So when an organ's transplanted from another person who passed, let's talk about people who passed. When you received an organ from somebody that's deceased, I just want to draw a distinction between someone giving you a kidney that's alive and somebody who's dead. So this is my take on it. So if an organ is received from somebody who died, my sense is the cravings, the things that are coming along with the transplant, if that was characteristic of the person who passed, people who pass that aren't ready to go, and a lot of people are in traumatic, sudden death situations that become organ donors, motorcycle accidents, something that you weren't expecting, and they're not ready to go. So this is part of them. And I think they see it as a segue to be able to still be here. And so they want to be heard. And I think the cravings and everything that people would get connected to the transplant would have more to do with the person that's dead being next to you saying, let's get a cheeseburger. You know, they'll say things to you to try and trigger this in you to make you wonder if they're there.
Yeah.
But instead we're thinking, is the liver craving it? It's like, no, the person's trying to get someone's attention, and it's probably because they passed suddenly and they can't get through to anyone. So they're trying to get through to the person who carries part of them with them. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying?
Kind of trippy if you think about it.
Well, my mind works that way. So it's
well, this is good to know.
So with organ transplants, when I was listening to her question, that was the first thing that popped in my head. I'm like, oh, the person's trying to communicate with the person that's carrying their organ to try and be heard or get their attention or to be relevant again. Can you imagine dying suddenly and all your family is traumatized, so you can't get through to them because they're blocked by pain? And here there's this person who's happy and healthy now because of you. And you're proud of that. You're glad you helped them. You feel connected to them. So I would say the organs from the people from where they came, the donors, do feel connected to the people that get the organ transplants because they're happy that you're well. And they do want to see the progress. However, they also often, I would imagine, would see them as a portal to be able to talk through, to hear them, to say, you know, we love cherry pie, you know, and then the person starts eating cherry pie and they don't know why. They whisper in our ears all the time. They know how to manipulate us to get us to do things out of character.
I love those stories when it's like the little girl who, you know, needed a heart transplant or something big like that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, someone's son died.
Yeah.
And then she got it. And they'll come and hug the little girl because they're like, that's the closest I can get to my son's beating heart. Because it is his heart.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, and I think you're right with how they are there with them telling them like, it's okay, or this is what I want.
Yeah.
Because at least I haven't heard of any stories where the person says no to the hug or seeing the person. They're usually pretty good about that.
Grateful.
Yeah, very grateful.
And what does it do? It brings the families together, and it opens the minds of the deceased person, the donor's family, that this is part of my son.
Yeah.
And it makes them more open to hearing him, to knowing that he's there.
Yeah.
So I see the person who receives the donation, the recipient, as the person that's the gateway back to the family.
Yeah, there was this one. I'll be fast, but there was
you're
this
fine.
one,
Please, it's a talk show.
Yeah, it was. I think it was Grey's Anatomy. So I mean, maybe this has happened in real life. I don't know, but this was a scripted show, and the girl was, I don't know, 15, 16, and she was in a really, really bad fire, and so her face looked deformed and different. Her skin was burned off, and there was a girl around her age that had just died. And they had to get the permission from the girl's mom who had passed
for the tissue,
for her skin, her actual face.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's hard to say that. Like, yeah, you can skin my daughter.
Oh, I know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then it saved this girl, gave her a second chance at life to look normal. And so then the mom went in there and pretty much looked at her daughter's face again because she looked exactly like her.
Aww.
And she was like, "Can I hug you?" She's like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's happened before.
If I'm an organ donor, so if anyone ever gets mine,
okay,
we'll find out.
They they get part of your brain.
They're like, I'm talking to the dead. What is happening? What's the deal?
Whose was this?
I got to get to the bottom of that.
Right.
So again, I think the characteristics of the personality of the person, what their likes and dislikes were, what their propensities for, their favorite things, their kind of car they like to drive, their accent, their sense of humor. All of these things can be signals from the person that died that I'm still here. Even though their soul didn't replace the soul of the body that got the organ, they're just around them. They're just trying to be acknowledged. That was my take.
I get too.
Yeah. Oh, okay, Sophia. Well, thank you for being here. I told you these were going to throw you for a loop, and we've got another set of those. And thank you to my listeners. Tune in next Tuesday for part 2 of my Love Me Not segment. Sophia and I will bring the intuitive fire to the party to answer your questions. I'm Allison DuBois. This is The Dead Life. And to all of my believers out there, don't stop believing.
Join us next week on The Dead Life. And don't forget to subscribe now to get notified of every new episode.